Hello everyone and happy Sunday. I'm happy to report first of all that autumn proper is now here and we're seeing single digit temperatures. We're emitting almost 24/7 and I personally am looking forward to winter and winter holidays. But before that, there is the COP27 summit to talk about. And I'm not going to talk about the whole thing because, as usual, a lot of people went there by private jets. I'm not sure why, critics single out private jets. All airplanes emit, so we should criticize them for every plane they take, whether it's a commercial flight or a private jet, because it's all emissions. I mean, take a train and a boat. I mean, Greta Thunberg did Europe to North America in a boat, in a sailboat, no less. But I'm not going to talk about their emissions and their hypocrisy, which has been called out, and that's good news. I'm actually going to talk about a few of the speakers who genuinely impressed me this year. And I've made some notes. You'll learn why later on. But I'd like to start with my new favorite person, the President of Colombia, Gustavo Petro. Lovely name, by the way, lovely surname, who apparently called for an immediate end to oil and gas production if we are to hit Paris Agreement targets, blah, blah. That's a great idea. I mean, it's not an original idea. We've heard it before, but it's a great idea. And I like the urgency of it. I like the immediately part. Now, Colombia is a producer of oil. It's also has parts of the Amazon, and it encounters a lot of opposition from local communities, which I perfectly understand. I wouldn't want anyone drilling for oil or gas in my backyard. Yes, I'm a NIMBYist. Sue me. You are a NIMBYist too, I'm sure. But here's what I would suggest to Mr. Petro. Why don't you lead by example? Stop producing oil and gas, stop exporting it, shut down all your pipelines, all your wells. Lead by example, because this is what a true leader does. Take Sri Lanka. They led by example. They stopped using synthetic fertilizers and became the most sustainable economy in the whole world. And we all saw how that worked out for them. It became a cautionary tale, but that's a risk you just have to take when you want to lead by example. That's so much for Mr. Petro. On to my notes, and this is why I needed my notes. Mr. Guterres, my favorite Secretary General of the United Nations, did a series of tweets last week. I'm sure many of you have seen them. All about the climate and how we need to act on saving the climate, because now climate is a synonym for environment and we need to save it, apparently. So yes, in these tweets, Mr. Guterres wanted to spur us into action, and what better way to spur a lot of people into action than to frighten them? So he did his best to frighten us by using really vivid apocalyptic imagery. And in this imagery, my favorite quote is the highway to climate hell, because it references one of my favorite songs, which I happen to have on my driving playlist, and I listen to it every day. This is why I needed notes. I've jotted down some ideas. Because of this reference to one of the classics in heavy metal, I had an idea how to help Mr. Guterres in his future apocalyptic messaging. It needs to be frightening, so people will start acting. These actions, I suppose, at this stage are mostly cutting their energy consumption, because I really don't see what else we can do. So here are a few suggestions. For example, we're hearing emission hell's bells. Again, to stay with AC/DC, because they have a lot of good songs like this. But Here's another suggestion. Unless we act now, soon we'll all be just dust in the wind. I like that better because it's apocalyptic and depressing at the same time, which could be very effective if put in a tweet that calls to action. Here's another one. Be quick with emissions or be dead in 12 years or 20 years. Just some random number that's within our lifetime, so we get scared. If the horizon is too far, it's too long, we won't care. I mean, it's been proven. You know how initially the threat from global warming was by 2100 or the end of the century, but nobody cared about that, so they started scaring us that we're gonna die early because of climate change. Another suggestion, which is not my favorite one, but I wanted to add some optimism. Here it is. Take a chance on the climate now. I know optimism is not exactly compatible with apocalyptic imagery, but we need a little bit of optimism, just for variety's sake, if you like. And it's classics. Our base is the classics. You can't not have the classic. And here's another classic, very appropriate for this situation. Beyond here lies nothing unless we cut emissions. Or unless we start using less energy. I mean, there are many options here. Beyond here lies nothing is a great start. Thank you, Bob Dylan, as always. So these are just a few suggestions for Mr. Guterres to use in his future speeches, if he likes them, but I think they're winning. I mean, there's no blood or gore or mental disease, but I think they're pretty good. Now, besides Mr. Guterres, who's always a hit with me, I heard, or rather read, what Ms. Ursula von der Leyen, the President of the European Commission, said at COP. And it was really sweet how she actually borrowed the highway to climate hell idea from Mr. Guterres and mentioned it in her speech. In the context that we should not choose the highway to climate hell, but instead, she said, earn a ticket. What was it? Let me just check. Earn the clean ticket to heaven. You have to admit, this is marvelous. This is just excellent. Fit for a presentation for your 5th grade geography class. It's just great. But to stay with the musical reference for a bit longer, I would like to remind Mrs. She's married, Mrs. Ursula von der Leyen, that it's not a flight to heaven, it's not a train ride, it's a stairway, Mrs. von der Leyen. And it's one of the longest songs I've ever listened to in my life. So that should tell you something about how long the road to heaven is, as it should be. It shouldn't be easy to go to heaven, and it shouldn't be just it shouldn't come down to earning a clean ticket. God forbid it's a dirty one, stained with petrol. But moving on to my conclusion for today, because I really can't cover everything and everyone who spoke at COP27, but I would like to mention Britain's brand new, fresh off the vote Prime Minister, Mr. Rishi Sunak, who appears to be the only one out of the 4 people I've decided to quote today who mentioned the word growth. He talked about clean growth in his speech, as if it's a good thing. I would like to tell Mr. Sunak that he is behind on the science, because the latest economic research apparently suggests that economic growth is not all that good. It's not necessarily good, and even if it's somewhat good, it's not entirely good, and we should stop striving for growth at any cost. I mean, it's science, and if science says it, it must be true. It has to be true. So I would suggest that Mr. Sunak keeps up, because otherwise he might stop being a prime minister, just as his predecessor did. I mean, recession is no longer a bad thing, I'm hearing. It surprises me, but it must be true if economists are saying it. So, keep up and maybe use a highway to hell reference once in a while, Mr. Sunak. I mean, join the greats in the Hall of Fame of climate speech givers. That was all for today. Have a great week next week, and I hope there will be enough material for me to talk to you about next Sunday. See ya!